Well, greetings from snowy Steamboat. We didn't know that we were going to move up here in an epic snow year, but so far we're sitting a little over 350 inches for the year. So we'll trade a little bit of our snow for some of yours down there. But we've enjoyed it. We've been gone traveling for part of the winter, so it hasn't been all bad. Uh, I have been a member of the program committee on Centennial Rotary's club for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like that. Uh, this was kind of my last hurrah in setting up this program with a very good friend of ours. We've known the Evans family for about 35, 40 years, actually for longer than Jenny has been around. Jim, her dad, is my estate planning attorney, and we travel with Jim and Diane and have had a good time together. But it's been our pleasure to kind of watch the Evans kids grow up, and they're very similar in age to Jordan and Lindsay. So it's been fun to be involved with them that way. As most of you know, I have an ag background, and I tried to bring kind of an ag flavor to some of the programs that I brought to Centennial Rotary. That kind of hinges on my growing up in northeastern Colorado on a centennial farm that my granddad homesteaded in the late 1890s. It's still in the family out there northwest of Holyoke, and we're very proud to still have it in the family. But as I was watching Jenny grow up, Jenny grew up down in southeast Denver, Aurora, went to Regis Jesuit High School, and just was not, the ag girl that she has become these days. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jenny Bennett today as our program. She's followed a very non-traditional route. She came to CSU, my alma mater, but she majored in ag education, and actually after graduation, she interned up in Eaton within their FFA program there, and then she became the ag instructor out on the plains there at Prairie High School, and then followed her heart back to Fort Collins. Actually, her heart was pledged to someone on the 50-yard line of the CSU football stadium. Her husband, Jake, was the center of the CSU Ram football team. And he picked the most appropriate place to propose to Jenny. It was on the 50-yard line following one of their games. So we got to zoom in and watch the proposal, got to go to Jenny and Jake's wedding. And we've just had the pleasure of knowing them all these years. Jenny now is an instructor at CSU. When we first started to talk about this program, I became interested in what's happening down on the Spur campus at the National Western Complex. And I asked Jenny if she could help explain a little bit of that, but also explain what she does in the College of Agricultural Sciences at CSU. So without further ado, I present to you Jenny Bennett. I call her Jenny Evans most of the time, but I think she goes by that. But Jenny Bennett is our speaker today. And Jenny, the floor is all yours. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. And thank you for allowing me to join you all today. Like Dan said, I grew up in a non-production background, but came to CSU and found a real passion within agriculture. And I think that drives a lot of what I do and how I do today. And so I hope to give you a little overview of our program, CAMS Agriculture Academy, which is an agricultural outreach program. Give you a little bit of an overview of agricultural literacy, the concept. I feel as though it appropriately fits also within your Rotary mission of being that you all have a real passion for water, and obviously water and agriculture have a very intimate relationship. And so within that space, water education also falls within the realm of agricultural literacy. So I hope you all might learn something new related to the importance of agricultural literacy, and that may ultimately perhaps positively impact your efforts in some way. And then I hope to also give you a little bit of a glimpse. I am, I guess, adjacent to the programming conducted at SPUR. I lead several educational initiatives that take place on the National Western Center, and assist with educational initiatives that take place at SPUR. However, I by no means am a program lead or what have you, so I'm going to do my best from my perspective in terms of my experiences, in terms of all the exciting things going down there. So I don't speak too much for anybody, but I also hope to give you all some resources, because SPUR is certainly worth a trip down there for your organization. So okay, back on track. So without further ado, we'll just get into it. I can't quite see everybody's hands in the audience here, but I am curious if any of you are familiar with the phrase agricultural literacy. And if you have, since I can't hear you, if you maybe want to express where you've heard that phrase before, or what you think the definition of it is, to a neighbor next to you if you happen to be in person. And then if someone might be willing to share their either their interpretation of that phrase, or perhaps where they've maybe heard that phrase before. And I apologize if anyone has spoken quite yet. I haven't heard anything come through on my end, at least. I think you all might be all muted still, but I'll take your word for it as though you all had great conversations about what you think agricultural literacy is, or where you maybe have heard that phrase before. And really what agricultural literacy is, it's the conceptual understanding of agriculture, the valuing of the relationships that make up the agricultural system, including natural resources such as water, and then your ability to communicate, take action, and be a part of that system. And so when we look at agricultural literacy, it's a really multifaceted concept. It's by no means a pyramid where there is one person that is the most agriculturally literate individual. They win that award. It is far more as a spectrum of, if you are fortunate enough to have been born on a farm or ranch, you might have considerable knowledge and experience in one facet of agriculture versus maybe another person. And all of those spaces are important within agriculture and are a part of agricultural literacy. So why, we feel as though it's important to invest agricultural literacy within community spaces. I know that in particular with your organization, you're intimately involved with the Poudre Learning Center, which Poudre Learning Center has many focuses, mostly natural resource focused, which again falls within that agriculture umbrella as well. And so this is great because agricultural literacy and investing within agricultural literacy in those community spaces such as Pooter Learning Center ultimately can provide a space that creates more accessible agricultural education and more accessible interactions within spaces that are concerning agriculture. And here's why. This is one of my favorite graphics. I apologize if it's a little contorted on your screen, but this is a graphic of the system. It's an illustration of the system of agriculture, and it's quite complex. It's quite complex. And the reason why we need to invest in these community programs and why we need to invest in agricultural literacy is, as I said, not everyone is fortunate enough to be born on a farm or ranch, be part of an FFA program or a 4-H program. Agriculture is intertwined in every single one of our lives. And so we deserve to feel as though we're knowledgeable and a part of that system that provides us those things. Additionally, some intrinsic values within that space include it brings a community together. It increases interest in agricultural careers. Agriculture, I'm sure that you all are perhaps familiar with the 2050 crisis. We need to figure out how we're going to feed the world by 2050. Our population is intended to boom even more than it is right now. And you can tell by the system of agriculture graphic here, it's a lot more than just farming and farming careers that go into this agricultural system. So we're in a place where we need to invest in individuals becoming interested in agricultural careers. Also increasing affinity or likeness for agriculture, which ultimately we hope to increase legislative support. Some of you might be familiar with the PAWS Act. That was quite a hot button last year in Colorado legislature. And that's just one example of several initiatives that, could have impacted agriculture in a pretty negative way. So we hope that through agricultural literacy, at the end of the day, everyone is still allowed their opinions and perceptions. We just hope that those perceptions and opinions can come from a place of knowledge and a place of, awareness that is built from scientific research. So another thing, in terms of why we find agricultural literacy important is agriculture is complex, confusing, and intimidating. For those that are even in agriculture, you may only be familiar with your one facet. So to feel as though you need to be the master of all with it about all of these spaces, that's quite complex and often just not the case in terms of individuals being knowledgeable about those other spaces. So who and what is CAM's Agriculture Academy? This is a pop question, and again, I'll let you talk amongst yourselves, but whoever, can someone tell me or tell each other, I guess, who CAM is? It's a very important question. Dan, would you like to volunteer who CAM is?
Am I the only CSU graduate in the room? I know there's more of you guys out there. CAM, of course, is the mascot for the CSU Rams, and he was named after the Colorado A&M, which was the original name of Colorado State University when it became into existence.
That's right. Yep, absolutely. So it is no mistake. We chose the name CAM's Agriculture Academy because we felt it was the most appropriate name to award to this really big initiative of creating more accessible agricultural education and improving the agricultural literacy of our Colorado community. So the CAM's Agriculture Academy is housed within the Program of Agricultural Education at Colorado State. If you are familiar with Colorado State and the College of Agricultural Sciences, and even deeper, perhaps, with agricultural education in Colorado. We are most well known for our school-based agricultural education teacher program. That is the program that I went through as an undergraduate student, and that is a program where we develop individuals to become agricultural educators, FFA advisors across the state. We have a little under 200 agricultural education programs in middle school and high schools across the state, and that number seems to increase almost every week, which is fantastic. Despite that number increasing, part of the reason why we developed CAM's Agriculture Academy is because we still see a need for increasing accessibility of agricultural education through diverse program offerings. And we're passionate about agriculture, education, partnerships, and really the space that I've started to dive into is how these programs can mentor the next generation of agriculturalists. And really this is a space also that I think that Greeley Centennial Rotary and the Poudre Learning Center can perhaps evaluate, because there's lots of opportunities here for not only educating, but also inspiring and potentially building workforce development skills. Our aspirational statement is that we hope that every school-age student in Colorado should have a significant agricultural experience. And so we do this in 3 different phases. And so I'm really going to touch most on this badging and bridging space here today. We have 2 programs. One is our CAMS on the Road program, which I lead up, which is really focused on high impact community focused programming. It is educational experiences built for communities. And it's intended to foster collaboration amongst community, industry, and youth partners within these spaces. And so, for example, when we go out into communities for CAMS on the Road, we initially started as, we had 2 programs a year, the National Western Stock Show and State Fair. As of this summer, if all of our funding comes through, we will be traveling to a little under 10 Colorado communities that span from the Western Slope, Eastern Plains, include the National Western, and also State Fair. And so our purpose there is we go into these communities and we provide infrastructure. We provide curriculum. We provide teacher training, mentoring, in spaces where really the biggest need that we see is our extension staff, our ag teachers, other community members that are highly invested in educational programming, quite simply don't have the capacity to always deliver what they would like to deliver. And so, I'm seeing a thing called my Zoom camera. Oh, perfect. Yep, we can communicate via the Zoom chat. Thank you. Our mortgage learning lab is housed within the SPUR system, which is at the National Western Center, within the Terra building. So I'll talk a little bit more about those structures in a few minutes. But the mortgage learning lab is the other half of our agricultural literacy outreach program. And it's a laboratory space designed to engage students in problem-based learning experiences. So these are long-term experiences that schools can come to SPUR and essentially engage in curriculum that tackles wicked issues in Colorado. And it's really a collaboration between land grant and industry individuals. As I said, our program offerings for CAMS on the Road, one of the things that I talked about previously on the other slide was providing program design and evaluation assistance and also youth mentoring. We see this as a unique space where particularly youth within 6-12 spaces not only should be the recipients of this agricultural literacy programming, but we should also be looking them as potential individuals to invest in these spaces as teachers. And the reason being is I can't think of a single skill that a teacher has that any employer wouldn't want. There's a pretty unique set of skills that teachers learn when they go through their teacher training processes, and we're really proud of that. And we actually feel as though if we can capture youth in these spaces, put them through these teacher training, mentoring programs, that we actually can contribute to a better workforce, individuals that are interested in joining specifically the agricultural workforce, and hopefully also promoting the career of teaching agriculture. Amongst all of the careers that we need, individuals that we need to enter careers in agriculture, we need agriculture teachers. And that can be within the formal classroom, but as you're saying, this can also be outside of the classroom. Spur has opened a whole new door that our industry of agricultural education has never seen before and is kind of taking them by storm. Non-formal education is blowing up. And I think that the Poudre Learning Center is another space that is going to really see the benefits of this. And it's not just a post-COVID inflation, I don't think. I think that this is something that's here to stay, which is fantastic for us that are invested in these non-formal education spaces. What's great about the on the road setting too is it serves as a training ground for our soon-to-be teachers. In these pictures, here's a CSU student. These are CSU students right here. They're engaging with individuals aged quite literally 2 to 99 from backgrounds that range from 5th generation farmer to have never seen a heifer before to they are from maybe a country outside of the United States. Last year, we had a family from Sweden that came and engaged with our students, and our students had to figure out how to communicate with this family who only the mother could speak English. And so talk about a transformative way to approach teacher preparation. These students work really hard to engage with people for hours at a time about agricultural concepts, about natural resource concepts within these community settings. And you can tell we're, with the exception of National Western, we're really not in fancy spaces. Oftentimes we'll find ourselves in a livestock green or an old barn, and we have nothing but pipe cleaners, a few cups, and whatever might be around that, you know, we can take to these places to create transformative agricultural education experiences. You can also see here, there's some examples of FFA members, high school students that are teaching these students, which are elementary school students, they're about 3rd or 4th grade, about agriculture. So now all of a sudden, these FFA members just aren't recipients of our program. They're part of our program, and they look at themselves all of a sudden as leaders within this space as well, which is pretty cool. The thing that I think I'm most proud of in this program is our badging initiative. And so we have various different types of programming, but when individuals choose to engage in our most intensive type programming that would take them more than 20 minutes to complete, they can become junior ag ambassadors. And so within the College of Agricultural Sciences, we have this group of students called ag ambassadors, and they're seen as sort of the elite group of students within the college. They're the leaders within the college. And we took that name. We thought it was appropriate. We wanted to make junior ag ambassadors because we wanted students to feel inspired, to be rewarded and be motivated in these spaces. So upon conclusion of our programming, students are quizzed on what they learned, and I have a lot of students that take that to heart, so they don't let them skim by with giving them any old answer. So they're really quizzed on what they've learned from whatever activity they engaged in. And then they make an oath to continue exploring agriculture and natural resources, share what they learn with their friends and family, and then be leaders in their community. So it's pretty awesome. On any given day during any of these community events, we'll see hundreds of little individuals, sometimes older individuals too, walking around with their junior ag ambassador badges. And to anyone that might just not seem so special, but when you really think about it, that's a group of individuals who have pledged to committing themselves to learning about agriculture further and essentially being invested in agriculture, which is really all we want to do. So that is some of our on the road programming offerings that we offer. As I said, we're really highly invested in the 612 student development. And so we're continuously finding new ways that we can especially engage with Colorado FFA to integrate CAMS Ag Academy more. So these are just some examples of that space. And then I know that you all are really curious about SPUR. And so here's just a picture of what our laboratory looks like. So we're within the Terra building at SPUR. So there are 3 buildings: Vita, Terra, and Hydro. And the Morgridge family generously donated the name for this lab. And so it's CAMS Ag Academy within the Morgridge lab, within the Terra building. And so our main concentration on this space, like on the previous slide I mentioned, is problem-based learning. And so essentially a group of students are given, we've created a curriculum where a group of students is given a wicked problem in agriculture to address. And they work all semester long. We give them tools, we give them interviews, we give them reports, we give them mini research projects to conduct, and they need to try and find a solution to this wicked problem. The first problem that we're exploring is food security and food systems. We saw a huge disruption of these systems during COVID. And so this is something that we felt like was really timely appropriate for us to explore. I know that water is going to be an issue that we will want to also explore, particularly for Colorado. And so that will definitely be a topic that perhaps we explore in the coming years. Sustainable animal production is another one that we are looking at to create. So all of these different topics are put in front of these students. They're given all sorts of credible sources of information and support. And at the end, they get to present their results of how they want to develop an innovation for this problem in front of industry leaders in those spaces at SPUR, which is pretty awesome. And so that is a really great opportunity for them to not only develop these lifelong skills, but hopefully develop an interest within one of those spaces. And you never know, maybe even network. They could be networking with a future employer. So if you're interested in visiting SPUR, I've attached the CSU SPUR website. So it's just csuspur.org. And their hours, Monday through Friday, are 9 to 5. And they run a second Saturday program. So if any of you have school-age children or grandchildren, nieces and nephews, every second Saturday, they put on free educational programming about all of these spaces. So they have a veterinarian that does live demonstrations. They have rooftop gardens. Our program does agriculture-focused programming. They have a soil lab. The water building also has programming. That's the newest building, so I'm the most unfamiliar with that space. However, I know that they have a water lab. I know that they're running experiments where their individuals can take samples out of the South Platte and examine those samples. So it's just a really great space. It's still very new. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of SPUR and how it continues to develop and be a part of our initiatives to develop agricultural literacy within all of these spaces. I just wanted to conclude with these are our impacts so far as of December 2022. So we started this program in 2019, CAMS Agriculture Academy. And as of December, we had reached 47,000 people. And that's not just people passing by. That is 47,000 people that we have documented as having significant engagements with, which is pretty awesome. And we have over 2,500 junior ag ambassadors. So of those, I know that doesn't seem like a very big number, but if you can imagine that, of those significant engagements, there was an additional almost 3,000 of those individuals that went the next step to engage and actually pledge themselves to being a part of an organization to do more and to continue explore and to continue aspire, to inspire and be inspired through these program offerings. And then over 115 CSU students have been a part of this program as well. And so I think that's really gives us a signal as we're looking at programs like Pooter Learning Centers, we're looking at programs like Spur. These students have a real passion for these spaces. And so that gives us a signal that we need to invest more in these spaces as it pertains to career development, internships, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a pretty cool signal for us as well to look at. So that is a little overview. I wanted to save a little time. So if you wanted to see anything particular to Spur, I could pull up the website and kind of share some of those spaces with you. But this is my contact information if anyone is interested. But other than that, thank you so much for letting me share about our program. We've had a really awesome positive response so far. And so we just appreciate you guys being another group that's interested in these spaces.
All right, thank you very much, Jenny. And we're passing the microphone out. If you cannot hear their questions, and then you could repeat the questions also. So there is a microphone out in the audience. So go ahead, Lou.
I have a quick question. I have a grandson that's attending a brand new high school down in Commerce City. It's not a STEM program, STEAM program. It's science, technology, engineering, agricultural, and math. And the students are involved in project-based schooling, which includes agriculture. Are you familiar with that program at that high school? It's just started this year.
Yes, I am familiar with the STEAM school. I had the opportunity, even though there's almost 200 programs, we're a pretty tight-knit group of agricultural educators in Colorado. And so that is one of these groundbreaking programs that we've really seen where agriculture isn't just a program within the school, but it's actually a part of the school's framework. And so I'm very excited to see how that school develops and how those students are able to experience their regular, their other subjects, science, English, et cetera, through the lenses of agriculture.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to attend 2 FHA conventions, one in Kansas City and one in Indianapolis. I got to tell you, that's an experience I wish everybody could enjoy.
Yes, it's such a wonderful, it's one of a kind, and there's really not a good way to describe it. But if any of you have the opportunity to travel to Indianapolis or any of the locations in the future to attend the convention, I certainly recommend it.
Just curious to know if you know any data in terms of trends in participation in like 4-H or FFA, either Colorado or nationally, if you're seeing an uptick in participation as, you know, groups like yours continue to focus and refocus and focus on this, or if you're seeing more of a declining participation rate, which is obviously why you guys are doing what you're doing.
That's a really good question. I think where it starts is we in agricultural literacy, agricultural education, extension have seen that there's been a significant uptick in individuals interested in where their food comes from, where their products come from. And that's, of course, I think from how I understand, mostly adults. And the influences of those space include social media, Netflix, et cetera, et cetera. Because of that significant uptick in people being interested in where their food comes from, and because of these huge platforms taking it upon themselves to be the self-proclaimed experts in agriculture, we saw it as our duty to ramp up our efforts. Agricultural literacy really isn't a new concept, and neither is agricultural education. However, I think it's safe to say we were just kind of going about our day, doing our thing, and we realized all of a sudden, I think I'd say specifically in Colorado, between the PAWS Act, the impacts of COVID, those made us step back and say, we have to stop being passive in our efforts, and we need to start being proactive in terms of how we approach agricultural literacy development in Colorado. As far as FFA and 4-H involvement, for Colorado, I can't necessarily speak on the 4-H participation, but our FFA numbers increase every year. And that is something that is a huge positive that I think is coming from not only schools wanting to be a part, have CTE programs, have career and technical education programs within their schools. And of course, there's a number of factors that impact that, between, hey, do people value agricultural education more and like career and technical education type subjects more? The price of college is certainly an impact in that space. And so I would say, from my knowledge of being associated with agricultural education and FFA, our numbers are continuing to increase significantly. With that, the diversity of the individual that is involved in agriculture is continuing to increase, which carries its own opportunities and challenges in terms of how to represent and how to give students experiences within all that whole system of agriculture, not just one area or another.
Jenny, this is Dan. Just to piggyback on that, can you tell us how many students in like the ag college and the vet college are what I would call traditional ag students that came from a farm and ranch background versus those that were kind of like you and came from a very non-traditional ag background?
So nationwide, there's a few census that were done. Over 75% of any student that's in a college of ag comes from a non-production background. Within the College of Ag at CSU, that number is a little bit higher. It's about 80%. And that number was published in 2019. So I would say it's probably relatively the same. Some people look at that and panic. And I would actually argue that there's nothing to panic about. That's actually a really good signal. That's a really good signal that people are turning to agriculture as a space that they want to be in. And so we see it as our job then to welcome these individuals in, make them feel as though they're a part of the community of agriculture. For those of you, or any of you that come from an agricultural background, have an agricultural career, any sort of relation, you feel like you're part of a community. And that's really what we see is a lot of students, they want to feel that way. And there's a lot of careers out there that need to be filled, which means we need lots of different types of students. So we're just looking at ways. I think that the biggest thing that colleges are going to have to prepare for and are preparing for is, how do we innovate the college experience to accommodate for this significant spectrum of now students that are coming in with agricultural experiences. Some, again, being, they've grown up in agriculture their entire life, and then some, having never stepped foot on a farm. And then the individuals that kind of fall in between. So.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah. Dan's got his hand up, but it's down yet, sorry.
Johnny's got a question.
One of the things, I went to the Northern Colorado Farm Show I think it was about last month, and the technology that's advancing in farming is amazing. A lot of the kids that I talked to when I was there are looking more at the science and the technology of it, but there's a strong business sense. How much of your curriculum has a business acumen to it?
That's a great question. And so for our initiatives particularly, it is multidimensional. And so we hope to hit on not only the STEM focuses of agriculture, the science, technology, engineering, and math, but also the business concepts. Being that I'm in the Department of Ag and Resource Economics, every day, actually currently we're working on an initiative to better connect ag business, ag econ type resources with teachers, because we're seeing that there is a need for teachers to further their knowledge in those spaces, and we're seeing that students really are lacking. I honestly don't think that's really any different than what we're seeing generally in terms of students. Business sense, money management, et cetera, in most schools is not a part of the core curriculum. And for a lot of our teachers, what they struggle with sometimes is, they're limited by how much background experience they've had. And so I would say that agricultural business is a cornerstone within the agricultural education programs. Everyone teaches it. It's just a matter of their current capabilities, but we are working on initiatives to help advance that straight from the College of Ag. So that's pretty awesome.
All right, any other questions? No questions? Well, thank you very much, Jenny, for your time today. Apologize for the little hiccup in the first part of the program, but very informative. Oops, she keeps moving around on my screen too. And as a thank you for presenting your program today, hold this up to the cameras. So this little comfort animal will be going to Evans Police Department for a child in distress. And the tag on it says, "This stuffed animal wants to help you when things are hard. Snuggle with it and you will feel a little love and caring. This comfort animal is given to you by Greeley Centennial Rotary in honor of Jenny Bennett, who was our presenter with today's date. And on the back is our 4-way test." So again, thank you very much for your program. We all need to have a field trip down there sometime, don't we?